Hey everyone, welcome back to Miniature Painting 101, a series of videos where we teach you all about painting miniatures from start to finish and everything in between. And this is part, can't believe we're already there, 144 Chibi faces using a layering approach. I'm just going to show you the basics of how to paint Chibi faces using a Frankenstein model, and I'll go and do flesh tones some other time with Chibis. So I start off by priming the model gray and then hitting it primarily from a 45-degree angle with white. Now the cool thing about Chibis is they tend to be actually very bright, very animated, very colorful, and for that reason you typically want to go for a white primer at darkest to gray primer. And so as you see here, just a little shading, I did some gray priming and then from an angle, white primer. Then I start off with raw flesh. Now for each paint, since I'm using a layering approach, I'm going to be thinning these paints down heavily. They are very, very thin, as you can see here, as I just apply a nice coat of raw flesh to the model to build my base coat over the white/gray primer. And I'm going to get it over the entire flesh tones. And that's the thing, with Chibi faces, you really want to draw the attention to the center of the face, specifically around the eyes, the nose, sometimes the jaw, depending on where it lies. And this one, the jaw is pretty low and it's pretty vertical, so I'm gonna just do a little bit over the lips, but not really there. Just the top of the forehead, drawing attention to the eyes, and that's the key where we want to draw the focus on this model. So as you can see, I'm going to build up just a nice layer of colors, a little bit at a time towards those areas. And that's the thing. Chibis, the really cool thing about Chibi scale miniatures, Chibi, by the way, is an Asian term meaning little person, but the really cool things about Chibi miniatures are the faces, which tend to be more animated, the eyes, which are more animated, and the hair. So those are the three focal areas that we'll be doing over the next several videos. I'll show you different techniques on each one. Faces, on the hair, and the eyes. So I like to start off with, of course, these, all the Chibi miniatures I've painted, I like to start on the faces and then work my ways on the eyes and then the hair, because I like to paint outwards. And that way I get the face all nice and done and then the eyes inside. I find that if I reverse that, sometimes this step will accidentally go over the eyes and I end up ruining the job. So I like to do the skin tone first, followed by the eyes. So now that raw flesh is done, I'm going to take some Warboss green and slowly just add more through blending, right? So I'm going to add a little bit more to the mix each time, and these are going to be very, very thin down paints. I'm thinning them down with Lamy and medium, so they're very nice and very thin. And I can see I'm going to start off with the higher areas. I'm going to leave the raw flesh in the very, very deep recesses, like the line of stitching across his head. And I'm going to build up, and then just the very, very edges of the eyebrows, the very recesses of the jaw, the under part of the jaw, and the very, very, very shaded parts behind the ears. And then I'm going to build up brighter and brighter greens as I go, a little bit at a time, and just draw the attention to those eyes and the nose and slightly above the jaw, and then the forehead. That's where I really want to draw the eyes of the viewer too. And yeah, and then we'll slowly, as I said, we're going to slowly paint up this Frankenstein model. I'm going to show this again in the future with skin tones, to show how to do skin tones on Chibis, because they're slightly different than skin tones on normal models, I find, just because they tend to be a little more animated, as I said. But as you see right now, I'm just building up the greens. This is just a combination of raw flesh and Warboss green. And I'm going to add more Warboss green into the mix and then continue on this process a little bit at a time. And so basically this entire episode is going to be greens, but we're just going to show how to build it up. And you want to build it up towards, as I said, you want to build up towards the eyes. And I'm also going to highlight up the tops, the ears, make them very bright as well. So now I'm just going to speed this up a little bit. Once again, start off with the eyebrows and the chin, the forehead, the areas around the eyes, and then as you can see, each time I'm going a little bit higher than the previous step, and just work my way towards the areas I want to really pop. So tops of the ears, the very top of the back of the head, and as you see, nice thin paints. Each step getting lighter and lighter because more and more Warboss green is a part of this, and it's just going to blend quite nicely into each other. And this is obviously Frankenstein, so you want it to be nice and green skinned, and yeah, I want it to be very animated. So once again, this is almost, this at this point, it's almost a 1-1 mix of raw flesh and Warboss green. Once again, highlighting up the areas around the eyes. And you intentionally leave some areas shaded, as I did here. As you can see now, the bottom part of the face, since it's almost vertical facing due to the animated nature of the face, I can leave that a little bit darker. Tops of the ears, just leaving that heavy. I really want to keep things animated so that the eye, like, so as you can see, his eyebrows, right, the gap between his eyebrows. I really want to keep that nice and dark to highlight it even more, to make it, you know, more defined. Now I'm just going to use Warboss Green just by itself. Once again, repeating this process. As I said, this entire tutorial, it is all very, very thin down paint. As you can see, it's nice and thin, which means it blends quite easily together. And it's the best paint to work with, especially because you want your brush stroke showing when you're painting your chibi miniatures, right? You want things to be nice and clean them together. But as you can see, we're really building up the tones. And now I'm going to take some Scarsnick Green and do a mix of Scarsnick Green and Warboss Green and just do a very nice highlight up the top, just the top part of the nose. This is the very center part of the nose line, and along the eyes, and the very bottom of the eyebrows. And this will just really, really make those areas pop. And then we're done the green areas. As I said, I could have done a different shade of green, maybe an olive green tones, but I really wanted mine to be animated, very bright green tones, almost orc skin tone. That's why I went with the orc triad of colors from the GW range. But you can go with any greens for this tone. I just want to show how to paint faces for chibi miniatures. And this is the key, is just draw the attention to the eyes, the nose, a little bit of the jaw, but it depends on how it's facing. This one's very vertical, so I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to basically let the bottom part of the face be a little more shaded as I built up the tones, as you can see. And then we're going to paint up the eyes and bring this miniature to life, and then finally the hair as well. And this is a Frankenstein model, by the way, from Impact Miniatures, a great chibi model line. Now, chibi is a scale. Now, most people ask, what is a chibi miniature? It's a scale. It is a very, very large head, very animated feature. So it's a little person. It's like a shorter model with a giant head, giant eyes, and a very animated face. Basically, is how to describe it. You know, shorter arms. And as you can see here, like shorter arms, shorter body, very, very large head. That's the scale of the chibi miniature. As you see now, I'm just drawing, and I'm just going a little more at a time. I'm adding more Scarsnick Green to my brush in this mix, and then it's becoming more and more Scarsnick Green. And the next step, I'm proceeding once again, just drawing a little bit on the eye, on the lips, top of the nose, and around the eyes, just building up that to really draw the attention, as you can see, really making it pop. And now then the key to these miniatures is actually the eyes. That's the most special part of chibis, is the eyes, and there's several ways to do it, and I'll be covering that in future videos as well. As you see, it's just a little bit at a time, adding more and more Scarsnick Green to this mix, and then continuing along this process just slowly with my paintbrush. And in this part, just the very, very cheeks, the very, very edges of the cheekbones, and then the very edges of the eyebrows. And then we're done. So we're drawing attention to the forehead, to the eyebrows, make them really animated, and the cheekbones. And that's what really is going to make this miniature come to life and pop. And that's it. This has a lot of fun. I can't wait to continue these steps and show you how to paint the eyes and the hair, especially on a model like this one. It's really nice. It's going to be a great model to show and demonstrate some techniques. But first, we're going to cover a couple more ways of how to paint chibi faces with skin tones and what's called the Quadrat Method, or the four-piece method, I've heard it called, but usually the Quadrant Method for faces as well. As you see now, just the very tops of the nose, the very edges of the cheeks, each with lighter and lighter amounts of Scarsnick Green, and just drawing my attention to those certain areas. And that's it. When the model's dry, here's what it looks like. As you can see now, when the light hits it, it is very well shaded, very well animated, and the attention is just brought to the eyes and the cheekbones and the very center of the face. And that is how to paint chibi faces. Obviously, you probably paint more skin tones, but this is Frankenstein's, you want green face. So as always, thank you so much for watching this episode of Miniature Painting 101. I really hope you enjoyed it and learned a bit about painting chibi miniature faces. And as always, stay tuned for next week's episode, part 145, which is just around the corner. Leave comments in the comment section down below of what you want to see in future videos. I'll do my best to make sure every suggestion happens. Stay tuned for more vids. Until next time, this is Jay saying, happy painting, everyone.